prolific boat builder. I'm really just sort of a caretaker of an idea that came before. In the early 20s, the national parks commissioned several large wooden boats in Glacier National Park. My parents worked for that boat company for 30 years. As a little kid, I was kind of the bilge rat. They would stick me down into the bilges, and I was a cleaner. And then I moved on to learning a little bit about planking, and then tried to build on it over the years. My name is Jason Cajune. I build river dories. In Montana, everybody calls them drift boats. Boat building teaches you to move a little bit slower because you can really mess it up so quickly. And in that going slow, you find a lot of enjoyment. Last summer, we decided that we wanted to float the Upper Missouri Breaks National Monument. We also wanted to check out some of these lands that had been just recently made available by the American Prairie Reserve. You know, it's so fun to get prepped to go. You almost get a little bit tense because you know you got a long drive and you got to deal with the shuttle. And then when you finally get on the water, your shoulders kind of drop and you just relax, and I just feel like, finally I'm home. When you first come around the corner, you realize the absolute grandeur of this canyon, which is out in the middle of the prairie. There really are these massive white cliffs that just go back into these coulees, and it's spectacular everywhere you look, and just a different environment than anything that we'd ever been in. We are on the Upper Missouri Breaks National Monument, floating for 5 days? 6 days?
6 days.
6 days. Camping out with the whole family over Father's Day, no less. Anytime you are getting out of your day-to-day life with your kids, that time is particularly precious. As the kids get older, you realize that you are losing a battle with a fixed resource that is their childhood. All of that feeling of innocence floods back when you're out on the river in a beautiful place. Everybody turns into little kids again. You know, I think that was the third day. We had a pretty big storm that just came over the horizon and hit us pretty hard. The storm on the prairie exposes a vulnerability in us. It just evokes that feeling of being so small in the world. And I think that that's something to embrace. Translates the scale of it in a different way than a storm in the mountains does. And it doesn't have the same meaning if you don't experience it. There's definitely something about traveling by wooden boat in the prairie that triggers you to be present. You know, when you're going down a section like this where it's just absolutely still and quiet, you have nothing to do but just contemplate the entire history of this place. It's an amazing cross-section. You know, you can imagine the buffalo here, you can imagine the dinosaurs wandering around, and then fast forward to Lewis and Clark coming through and encountering the Blackfeet. When you look in some of these books, there were animals everywhere. Can't help but think about your place and where we are now in history, and we're really lucky to still be able to go through it. When I was a kid, we would go climbing on all of these peaks that were right at the edge of the prairie. It turns out this apparently endless prairie is every bit as interesting as these huge mountain valleys. Just discover that what you think is just a flat field is a complete other area of Montana that will take my 5th and 6th lifetime to explore. We got off the river, and then we stayed on the American Prairie Reserve. It's an amazing piece of ground to observe. There are two sides to the way people see the future of that land. At its deepest foundation, the meaning is probably very similar for everybody. The feeling that the land evokes is the common ground. That feeling is probably the language that we need to use to bring people together in preserving the exact thing that everybody finds universal, that sublime, the vast open prairie.